Welcome to A Bit of Board Games, a casual podcast documenting the many failures and hopefully successes of Waffle Games, as we learn the ins and outs of board game design and self-publishing. Join us on this journey as we talk about a bit of life, a bit of design, and a bit of board games. Welcome back to another episode of A Bit of Board Games. I said that really quickly. A bit of board games. Can you say that 5 times fast?
A bit of board games. I can say it 1 time fast.
A bit of board games, but anyway, this is episode 76, and we're off to a smooth start here. I'm your host, Steven, and with me today is Ralph, art director,
hello,
game
everyone.
designer, and really putting him through the ringer at the moment, guys. So we'll jump into that in a minute, but man, what's new? Anything new? Anything new this week? We'll get to the main subject.
Week.
I don't know.
Let me think. Actually, what's happening this week is this week could not be more mundane. There is nothing new this week. Although I guess I will say, we just closed out the quarter. The reason it feels this way is because we just closed out the quarter at work, and so now we're back to kind of a normal feeling thing. And Katie and I don't really have much going on outside of that, so we're just doing a total routine. I just told Steven about, for instance, every night, Katie and I have the same ritual we do, where he gets home from work, one of us makes dinner. Most of the time it's her, because I suck at cooking. But sometimes it's me. But we make dinner, we chat, and then we watch a show, whatever show we're watching, an episode, and then
nice.
So we're really in the groove of just normal week, which is nice sometimes.
Yeah, that's great. We Henry, who's like a year and a half old now, his molars have been coming in, so like his teeth, and like the molars are some of the worst teeth to come in because they're just like large flat teeth. Those other ones can like pierce the skin and like then come through, or these just like are dull, take a long time, and like, man, he's having a rough go of it. But man, today and yesterday, CC too, they're both just like, they've been one big hot mess going on with like screaming, and Henry's playing with something, Cece goes and like grabs it, and she's like, I want to play with that. Then Henry is shrieking as loud as he possibly can, and then Cece's yelling, and then Henry like bit her or something like today, and then like she hit him, and like just way back in the molars, just dude, they've just been like, my wife is a superhero, like just dealing with this all day. I'm like down here in the basement working, and like I'm just hearing just screaming upstairs, and like she's having to deal with like punishing them and like trying to redirect and just trying not to lose her mind. And good gracious, these kids. But they're also great.
Sorry to hear that. I mean, it's a up and down kind of thing, right?
Well, like even today, it's like they're shrieking and screaming, and then we have a sweet moment, and they want to snuggle, and we read books, and then like a little bit later, just like lose their minds again, and then we're on a nice walk outside and playing, and it's fine. It's just like every day is a roller coaster. But so it's October. And for us here at Waffle Games, on the art side at least, Ralph and I, we are celebrating and participating in Drawtober, and it's like not the official Drawtober. I know there's a lot of social media things where people post like, "Hey, here's 31 prompts for the whole month," and like do one a day. Some people do like, "Here's one prompt every 5 days," or like one a week or something. So people do it differently. But the general idea is to try to draw something every day in October, and whether following those prompts or something else. So we have been doing our own, where we went through and went through all of the blueprints for Foundry, and assigned them to each of us between Ralph and I, split them all up on who's going to draw which items. And so today is now October 4th. So we're 4 days in, and we have learned things. We have not drawn 4 items each, which was the initial. Okay, so I'll set this up. The initial thought was like, hey, let's do 1 item every day, and whatever progress we make on that item, like we'll move on. The next day work on something else. So whether even one day if you don't have as much time and you just like concept something out, totally fine. Like that's good. That was the idea. But then after getting into a few days, we're realizing like that might not be as helpful in the long run, because we're still like we have the style now, but like we're still like refining that and nailing down the process. And so it would probably be counterproductive to just not make it all the way through the process to get experience on that, and just be like, and get random lengths of progress on each one.
Yeah.
Because if we just made it a little ways on a bunch of items, like, we might not ever get to the final stage. And then if we get to there on one item, it's like, oh shoot, like I'm on my 15th item, but I don't actually know how we finish items now. So, yeah. How has your experience been so far? What are your thoughts? What have we learned? What are we doing?
Well, it's like you said. Yeah, it's like you said. I mean, found out really quickly that, okay, an item a day, you could do it probably, but you couldn't do it well.
No.
That's the problem. Because when I even finished the scrap sword, so that's the first one I worked on, was the scrap sword.
This is now like the 4th rendition of this item.
I know. I think
this is the best one.
Finally,
yeah.
I think the scrap sword is finally cemented. It looks good and it fits the card well, and that's been the hardest marriage to make.
Well, so you were also working on integrating them into the card to make sure it was like fitting too. So add that on top of everything else. Counts. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that counts, right? So, but so jumping around, even on the next item I moved to was another scrap item, which I added a element to that wasn't in the scrap sword, and I was like, this would be really helpful to have this present in all of the items. So I even went back to the scrap sword again and kind of touched it up a little bit and refined it. You could refine forever, but basically, it's like Steven said. It made more sense to flesh one out a little bit better with a little bit more attention and care, so that now we can kind of more quickly go through them. So a little bit more upfront time dedicated to what really is the process.
Sure.
And now I think things will move more quickly, because that other scrap item I was able to get done in like less than a day's work, in like one sitting. Basically, I was able to pretty much take that one through to completion, which is really quick actually.
Yeah.
For a whole item, So
no, that's great. And then what? So we also decided. So my progress, I was working on the pulse axe, and so that I had like a random sketch from a while ago that I kind of like the general shape of. So I took that and I then was like, going into actually creating this whole item. So the pulse axe I started working on and got pretty far into it. And so I got like the outline, all the color blocking, and then started going into more of the rendering and the detailing side of things. And like did like the handle and like all that stuff, but I didn't have Ralph's art, like his piece, as reference, and so I'm like, I don't know if I should really render this yet, because it probably won't match. And that was kind of the beginning of a conversation Ralph and I had today, where since it's kind of Ralph's vision on the art side, and he can execute it better than I can. I could probably learn it and get there eventually, but since it's already in your style and for everything to match, I'm going to concept and draw these items, but not do the final step of like final detailing, highlights, all the like texturing, all that stuff too. And so
Yeah.
I'm gonna give Ralph a mostly completed thing that he can then balance, tweak, adjust, and then render out. Um, and that, you know, even if that doesn't happen until like after this month, like because you're working on items yourself, so
Oh,
um,
right.
at some point that'll happen. You know, we're getting through it. But the biggest thing, so yeah, that's a big step. We've figured out that process, and I think that's gonna work well and give a better feel to all the items, make them feel more cohesive at the end of things. But the biggest thing is that we're making progress. That like this is like
True.
a thing that's just making us work on it every day. And so far, we've both done some work on drawings every day.
Hmm.
So it's been good.
It has, yes. Yeah, it's been fun getting to this stage. It's been a big process, but it's been a lot of fun. And it's funny because I think it does highlight the fact that we're not exactly industry artists, you know. Um, it's hard. This
Yeah.
is hard. Like we're both designers
Right.
by trade, but and some of that carries over into like artwork or illustration, but not a lot, not all of it. There's a lot of difference between just a solid drawing, illustration, and just good design, you
Right.
know. So it's been a road to get to this point. A
Yeah.
lot of problem solving and a lot of just trying to figure things out, how it'll all work.
When was the last
Uh,
time you worked on, or like you just did illustration for anything?
oh man. Well, okay. There was this one. So there's a project on my website that I did an illustration for, and it was the primary piece. It was like an album cover thing,
So with the
and I did an
fish,
illustration.
something with a
No,
fish as an
that
old
was on
one.
my old
Okay.
website. The new one is is uh what did I call it? Um, Famine. That's what it is. It's
Famine.
good. Yeah.
Nice.
It's like very like one light source face of like a girl with a
Hmm.
halo, and then yeah. So all of that was actually an illustration.
I don't remember. I
But
don't
I
know if I
just
saw that one. I don't remember that.
I yeah. Well, it's live. It's on there.
I'm gonna look right now.
Um, but it's yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that, but that's more designy. Even the project itself is super designy, like packaging design and everything. I just needed an illustration for that
Hmm.
to work. And so technically that's the last time I did it. But that's been a little while, months ago.
Okay. So
um
kind of greasing those gears.
yes, it's
Getting
again,
back
it's not
into it.
something. This is something I've been trying to do for a long time, is
Okay.
be able to effectively pair good illustration with good design and like find projects to be able to do that with. We've talked about this on the
Yeah.
podcast before.
Yeah.
And it's such a hard thing to do. I've even looked desperately for like other examples of people doing similar types of things. And it's always the same thing. You really don't find people just doing it alone. You find a mix of people doing it,
Hmm.
like studios or
Right.
production agencies, um, multiple authors doing a project, everyone with their own specialty. So it's not easy, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun though, and I think it'll be really cool as a project overall
Yeah.
in the end.
For
So
sure. And then, of course, you got the cards, and then you're gonna do icons and stuff too, which I think it would be good to knock those icons out during this Drawtober as well. So if you
yeah,
did focus on that for however many days or whatever too, that could be good. And then it's player boards, box art, and then eventually rule book, but that's kind of just more the layout and then adding kind of some cool visual elements to it. We're not like illustrating the rule book or anything like that. So we'll add illustrations and have illustrative components to it. But you don't have to like individually illustrate 15, 20 pages, I don't know, 10 pages, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
So
We could probably reference a couple rule books, see what they did.
yeah, a lot of them are textured and have a lot of design elements. There might be like the body of like the rules, and there's like an example, and like that's in like some illustrated box kind of thing. So there will be a lot of illustrative elements to it. But that'll be a little bit different than just like a full like rendered illustration for the box art or whatever. So yeah. But that'll be good. It's been, like I said, it's already been a good experience. So I mean, I've gotten a lot better at art just from working on Foundry, from like the previous stages of just like, hey, I want to try to do this and like try a different style and just pushing myself. And that just doing that repeatedly has like helped a lot, to the point like now with this item that I just did, it felt a little bit out of my comfort zone to do more freehand like illustrated on this piece, and have some more like organic feeling aspects to it, and not just be like use the line tool and like pull the line, or like just straight like vector art and stuff too. It's hard, man, just like doing like more organic feeling stuff like that. It's another new challenge, but it feels good once you like feel like you can actually do it. So
yeah, pushing yourself, I feel it too, dude. I mean these items are a little bit more, I'm semi comfortable with the item stuff. Like it's because like, okay, I've drawn swords before, I've drawn whatever, axes, fantasy weapons, stuff like that. But the thing that really stretched me honestly was the card itself, the frame, dude. Oh man, I mean that was it was just so much to consider, and I've never done that kind of design before, and yeah, it really does push you, which is a good thing.
The frame was such a detailed design that like it's also functional. So like we designed it in a tangible way that's like you have to incorporate all of these elements and they all have to tie together and fit the theme, and then allow for items to be inserted and still match and look good too. Like there's a lot of limitations, which like limitations are good for a lot of things, but there's also like in that kind of a lot of limitations that to design it. So
yes, there is an expression, I think this is like something people say, is limitations breed creativity. Which is true, but in the moment it feels
limiting,
not fun. Yeah. So we definitely experienced that on the card quite a bit, but I think we did push ourselves and we got it to a pretty cool place. They're pretty unique cards, and
probably the coolest cards ever made by anyone in existence.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Well, I do feel it makes me feel good that we're in this place finally, because it makes me feel like, oh, I finally earned some of this position that I hold of taking charge and trying to push the artwork in a good direction. It's for a while, it took us a while. Like I didn't, I would work on stuff, but we were just like concepting things out and theory crafting and putting ideas together. But finally, we've got some work to show for it, and especially at the end of this month, we're gonna have some.
I mean, even the two items that you've like finished, like those are so good. So, I love those. Whenever you show me something and I'm just like, what? Like that's usually I'm like, okay, this is awesome. This is really promising. Like it's great. So.
It finally feels like we've landed in a good spot, you know. Because we even had, like, I even fully rendered almost a separate version of the scrap sword, and something about it was off. And Steven, and when you're working on these things, it's so funny because it was such an obvious thing. Like the color of the blade is a little weird. And while I was working
Yeah,
on it, it made sense in my head because I was just like,
sure.
okay, he probably found some material that is. I was thinking of some kind of like sandstone
Yeah, for sure.
thing that you like shear off the edge, and in some sense it could work maybe, but it wasn't. It was a little confusing and
Yeah,
just a strange choice.
it
The
looks
direction we ended up going in
it looks
was better.
fleshy.
Yeah,
Like the first thing
fleshy.
I saw, I'm like, oh, this just looks like some weird like severed flesh chunks attached
Yeah,
together. Um,
yeah.
it does not.
Maybe when we start making our Silent Hill
Oh
game, we'll
gosh, yeah,
we'll
you could
bust
do
that
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 one.
design
Do
back
that one
out.
on your own. Oh man, yeah, no, it's good. The direction is great. I'm excited. The next thing I'm working on is the pulse gauntlet, and then like we kind of split up. Ralph's taking the scrap items. I'm starting with the pulse items. We're starting on the basic items, so that way we can learn as we go on the more simple weapons, and then we'll move on to advanced and mastercraft, because those are more gonna be more unique, more interesting. Um,
And we'll be better at this process by
right.
then. So the mastercraft item should be more skillfully done by us too,
Right.
literally.
Yeah, because
Hopefully,
we want them to be more interesting and unique. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully by the time we get there, we can be like feel more confident in making something that's more complex, I guess, in some regard. And then
Yep.
we're saving the companions for last because that's just a different beast entirely.
It is, yeah, it is going to be a unique challenge. I'm excited about the companions though
I
because they're going
I'm
to be
really
fun to
excited.
draw. Yeah, they're going to be fun to make and kind of think about how what they're what is their
Yeah,
specialty
dude.
and what would that look like.
I don't know what your ideas for the box art are. I know you've thought about it before, not like in depth, but it could be. I mean, we're gonna include elements of the game, but like having some of the companions around could be really cool, like incorporated into the
It
box art.
could.
So
Yeah. There's two ways we could go with the box. Well, there's an infinite
there's
number of ways we
eight
could go with the box
hundred and
art.
seventy-six ways
But
actually, but
but the way that I'm thinking of it is I have two ideas that could work solidly for
mm,
the box art. One of them is a sort of a minimalist approach, like
just
like the
it's
classy
just
box,
black,
right?
very
Not
minimalist.
just very clean,
Okay,
very just like presented well, more design, more like just a good design.
mm.
And then there's the other direction, which would be a heavily illustrated box art, something like you showed, that box that you have, that you got
The
recently, right?
sample kit thing.
Yeah, yeah, it had like a nice illustration, right?
It's right
Something like
here.
that.
Yep.
Just off screen. There, yeah, yeah, something like that. Of course, that's a nice design too. Also, I mean,
Yeah, it's like
and that has some
combo.
fancy printing techniques too.
Yeah, it's got that gloss. What do you call that?
Which
I don't know.
okay, let's also be honest here. Of course, they're gonna send you like
The nice one.
something that
Yeah.
pulls out all the
Well,
stops.
and they
You
want to
know?
show all the capabilities. So it's like
Yeah.
there's
So
sample cards that have like, hey, here's one with a foil stamp. Here's one that would be holographic. Here's all the different stuff.
yeah, they're
Got,
trying to wow you.
and they did. So
Yeah.
I'll show you guys this in a second. It's pretty sweet. Um, yeah, the further we get into it and with the style, I think everything should probably be illustrated.
You're probably right because that we really are leaning into that, and
But not
I
to say like
mean,
you can't have some designed framework or something
oh yeah,
or other
I'll probably do
pieces.
a combo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be
So yeah,
awesome.
um, the hard one, of course.
Yeah.
That's what we'll do.
So whatever's gonna take the most time and be the most work for you, let's do that one.
Yeah.
Um, all
Oh
right.
man.
While I have this out, I'm just gonna show you. So I told you guys at these board game conventions that I went to that I made a friend named Josh who works at What's Games, and
Yeah.
this last one I was chatting with him, and he works in like the sales area. but he can send out sample kits of like sample components so that you get an idea of what you could create with their manufacturing services. And boy, are they cool. um, so one, I just showed you the box. It's really cool, and it's got this like flap. It's like a magnetic flap. Which, if you're, I guess I realized I just showed people on the video. So if you're listening, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just realized that too. Yeah.
But yeah,
Sorry.
it's cool. Here, listen. Just real quiet. Ready? Oh, snap shut. Anyway, so if you're watching the video, if you're not watching the video, go watch on it real quick. But we got this. I'll go quickly so you don't have to listen to me talk about it. But there's a really nice little sample like punch board, and so like little punch out tokens that we'll get. I put them back in because I just wanted to keep it that way. But yeah, just some examples of like some different little punch outs, little guys, little swords, things like that. It's pretty cool. There's 2 like regular like custom dice with like, you know, different shapes and colors, just kind of showing what they can do on there.
That's cool.
And then this one's like kind of more of like a clear die, with different printings on it. So that's cool. Also some really nice printed wooden tokens. So like little like larger than like a standard meeple size. Like you can like custom shapes. There's one that's like a sword. This one's like a ray gun, printed on both sides. So some cool stuff for like tokens like that, which is really cool. Also this thing was nuts. This is a miniature, and it's just like a really detailed, nice mini. Like really high quality. And again, I'm sure they're giving us some of the best stuff. Oh, and this is all in this nice like drop stuff. Like this nice like formed tray. Like vacuum formed. What is it called? I don't know what it's called. There's a term for that. Chloroform? I don't know. This cool like metal coin, which is like hefty and feels nice. Different colored D20, and then some other little sample like plastic tokens and stuff. And then a whole freaking card pack of like different cards, weights and card finishes and things like that. So yeah, it's sweet. So I'm really excited. So like after talking to this, like What's Games was already one of my top manufacturers that I wanted to do. It was like one of the top 3, and then I happened to meet this guy who lives in Denver near us, and he's a cool guy. He's a pretty cool guy, and like we got dinner with a couple other guys, like both conventions so far. Part of our little like designer crew, and so that's been fun. Kind of get to know him more, and like I have a personal connection with that, so I'm like, okay, that he's probably got my business at this point. So, because I'm really impressed with the quality. Yeah. I've heard that, you know, they got pretty reasonable quotes and everything too. And yeah, once we get to that point, making good connections. So, yeah, it's coming along.
Yes, we actually are doing good on the progress front.
Yeah. So Starfield. I don't know. I don't know what else to talk about.
Starfield Part 3.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to talk about? I don't really have much else going on right now.
On Starfield.
Well, no, say we could go into Starfield, but I don't want to just go into Starfield again. So.
Oh yeah.
Like the people are probably tired of that.
Yeah.
Here's an idea. Let's do another little mini design sesh. Ralph, you played through the game Stray, right?
Yeah, I 100%ed it.
Okay. I have not played it yet.
How did I not bring that up? Yeah,
I think it was a while ago.
Played and beat Stray. Yeah, I had a.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I had a good time. I mean, if you like cats, you will probably like the game, you know? If you want to play a game that is mechanically complex and presents some kind of challenge for your brain, that's not Stray,
okay.
You know? So, I mean, basically it's an experience game.
Yeah.
You want to experience a cat game. It's the one for you, you know? And it does I will say narratively, it's sparse on narrative, but what is there? There's some kind of really interesting implications, especially at the very end and like how the game kind of wraps up. It's well thought out and it does get you invested in these little cats, you know? So,
What genre would you classify it? Like a narrative adventure or something?
um,
A cat sim?
yeah, cat sim for sure. But I would almost, because it's not I wouldn't call it a platformer. It has platforming elements,
Hmm.
but the thing is, it's impossible to fail the platforming. So
Okay.
so it's not a platformer. I would almost call it a walking sim. However, there are certain moments
Okay.
where you are actually in some amount of danger and you have to do things to escape the danger. So yeah, cat sim. Really, if you just want to live the life, or like see a snapshot into what being a cat might be like, and doing things that a cat would do in a way that a cat would do them, solve little mini puzzles, stuff like that. I mean, that's the kind of game that it is.
Yeah.
Um,
So how would you turn that into a board game? What are some of like let's break it down. It's like what are like the core elements of the game? Like what are the main things that you do as the player as a cat?
um,
So like you
you
move, you walk around to places.
yes.
Do you
Um,
have a goal? Like are you trying to get somewhere or are you just kind of meandering around and interacting with stuff?
uh, So the game breaks out into sections. There are certain sections that are sort of something we've gone into in the past, which is like a semi-open environment, but it
Yeah.
is still somewhat limited. It's not like you're exploring an open world. It's just an open environment where you're given certain objectives
Hmm.
and points of interest to go for, and you can kind of go around and complete those and check them off like a list. And
Okay. So you have a list of like of challenges, goals, or like quests in some regard.
yeah, you get some info and you're supposed to figure out ways to solve that. And you're in the thing is you kind of make friends with this thing that helps you
Hmm.
solve it and helps you kind of direct you around and give you enough context clues to where you know what direction to sort of go.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, there's things that you kind of get done. And actually, it's been a while since I played it, so forgive me. I don't 100% remember exactly how it plays out. I just know that you have things that you're supposed to accomplish or achieve.
Okay.
And in some of the sections, it's going to be really linear. So you're just going to have one thing to do, and there's just kind of a path forward. And then in other sections, again, it kind of opens up, and you can sort of tackle things as you
Hmm.
want. You can waste time, you know, because you're a cat. Do kind of mess around, interact with people.
Yeah.
It's and then other times it's way more linear.
Okay. All
Um,
right. Well, here. Okay. So I think that's enough to go off of for an idea that I have now. Um. So this could be an interesting multiplayer game, like a kind of a competitive game, or like a simultaneous kind of. I guess competitive is what the end goal would be, but we'd have like a map. Like you have your open map that has like imagined terrain or like different tiers. So like maybe like
okay.
printed, it looks like there's like a bridge, but like technically, if you're on the bottom, you can go under it. You can't go across the top part. And so you have to find the stairway tile to go up to the next area or whatever. In this open space. Anyway,
Okay.
that's not super relevant. But like, there's just an open map with imagined height and depth and stuff, and that's like indicated with the art. On this map, you have interactable objects. So like maybe like tokens that are like mystery tokens or something. Um, that when you interact with it, it flips over and there's something like a reward and like or like a clue or maybe like lets you draw like an objective card or something. Um and then another thought kind of with the choice of like you can be a cat, you can just choose what you want to go do. No one's gonna tell you what to do as a cat, you know. So maybe there's like objective cards that you either like draw from a pile or there's like objective cards like laid out and like on your turn you can choose to take one or two. And so it's like, hey, like here's different objectives and it's like, hey, I want to go do this turn. I'm going to take this objective card and I have to go like find this person, like robot guy, or like I need to go and I don't know what happens in the game, but go knock a vase off of something and like random things that like you get points for doing these objectives.
Yeah.
And so then on your turns, you're like just trying to accomplish. You're all trying to accomplish different random, seemingly random objectives around this map, while trying to like to get the most points at the end or something. That's my idea.
And yeah, that's good. I've intentionally been vague in case someone listening or watching would want to play the game. You know, I haven't.
It's been out for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Spoilers. If you don't want to hear about what happens in Stray, leave now.
I'm not going to ruin.
You have 5.
I'm not going to ruin much about it.
3, 2, 1. Okay.
I would just say like the end goal of the game. I think you're right. In you should capitalize, if in a board game fashion, capitalize on the best parts of the game, which in my opinion are the semi-open little environments that you kind of explore and do a bunch of different stuff that kind of connects to one another.
Sure.
Those are the best parts of the game, I thought, and they were the most free parts of the game. The part where you you have the most agency as a player. And then like the linear stuff, you can just kind of cut that out. It wouldn't help the board game. So the ultimate objective, though, like finding little points of interest, doing things the way a cat would do. That's a big hook for the game. Like that's one of the game's gimmicks is not just getting to this area, but how would the cat get there? Because they can't use this thing to do it because they're a cat, right? So then you would find a way to do it. Or like, how do you get this person's attention? How would you do that the way a cat would? And then the end goal should be, well, if you did it the way Stray did it, your ultimate objective would be trying to get back to your family.
Okay.
So like you or your friends, it depends on how you look at it, but you have a group of other cats that you're friends with, and you know you're like a family or friends or whatever, and then you somehow get separated from them and you need to get back to them because you know you miss them, and you kind of go and do these things and you make some friends along the way, and that's kind of how the game plays out. But but yeah, that would be it's good as a driver because in the game you spend a little bit of time with these other cats and you love the time. It's like this total vibe check where you're just like loving this. It's so charming, you know. And it takes a lot to get to me, but because I just the cats are a total weakness. Cats are a total weak point for me. I was totally just in the moment with these cats. I just wanted them to be together, and then they get separated, and it's like the most heart-wrenching thing. And then you're just like playing the rest of the game because you have to get back to them.
Yeah.
So that was a big point.
So what if the board game was actually like a cooperative game, and however many people as different cats, you're all in different locations on this map. Ooh, okay, interesting. Or you're in 4 separate like map tiles, not connected, but there's like spaces between you, and so you can go and like explore a new section, and that reveals a new tile. So as you're going, you're trying to connect your tiles and like team up with each other, meet up, and then like help each other accomplish certain puzzles or objectives, and like so make it more like cooperative, where you're not like problem solving, puzzling, but yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting idea.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. That would work. the relationships, that's a big theme of the game, actually.
Mm.
See, this stuff is coming back to me as I'm talking about it. I was so cold on the game for a while, but
Yeah.
now some of this stuff is coming back to me. Relationships throughout the game as a cat, and just like what is meaningful as a cat. Like, again, I don't want to spoil stuff about the game, but you can just like nap next to people if you want to,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And there's no real purpose of doing it aside from just doing it, because that's what a cat would do, and
Mm.
it's really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and plus it doesn't waste too much of your time. The game is not very long. It's definitely a good time. Although, let me just say this, as a cat guy, it is a joke that that game was nominated for Game of the Year. Okay,
Really?
let's not freaking kid ourselves.
There's
That game is
not
not.
much of a game there.
No, it's
Yeah.
so. It was going up against like Elden Ring. I mean,
Oh
give me a
gosh.
break, dude. It was just like a gimme, like, oh, we got to throw an indie game in here because
Yeah.
we got to acknowledge indie games. But that was never gonna win.
Yeah.
And I even love cats, and I enjoyed the game, but let's be
Yeah.
real.
It's not on the same plane, same level there. Anyway, I have a comment from my brother Eric. So like last week when we did a little mini design sesh about RTS games. First of all, I was trying to come up with some clever thing that RTS stood for.
Okay.
And for Eric has one. So, someone asks you what Ralph thinks about Age of Empires, you say, Ralph, totally stoked. RTS.
Well,
So
totally
that's
stoked.
that's what we got.
I like that.
And then he also said he was thinking about how with those games you have to explore the map to find your enemies. With like RTS games, like you've got that
Yes.
kind of
The fog of
fog of
war, or
yes.
whatever they call it.
Yeah. He's like, it'd be great if you could somehow you could have a playing board like Battleship, so you know where you're located, and then maybe as you discover the other players, you unveil their locations. So,
Dude, that's so cool. Well, yeah, that's a really cool idea, actually. I'm envisioning it slightly different than Battlefield, but even if you could do it a bunch of different ways, but it would be so cool, especially in like we talked about Barrow March briefly, but like if where you start is basically what you see at the start,
yeah,
and then the rest of the map is kind of shrouded, and there could be a random element for what you'll encounter,
yeah,
but as you move you uncover, oh, what am I going to be dealing with in this next zone, and
yeah,
the fog of war idea. I mean, that's one of the key elements that makes those games kind of interesting.
yeah.
That's a
There's
good
games
idea.
that have like a mechanic called like hidden movement, where I think Trevor was talking about that with like the Dracula game or something. Maybe maybe that wasn't last week.
It was mentioned. I remember it
Okay.
being brought up.
Because in that one, like, there's an overall map, but then Dracula has his own like map and his own things, and he's like choosing where he's going, but it's not visible to everyone else. So there's aspects of that. Like, I've seen games too where people have like each have their own little like screen covering their own individual board, so they're all like doing different things, but like you can't really see what everyone else is doing. So
Mhm.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some way we could incorporate that, but we'll have to think about that on another episode. So, but
Yeah.
did you have something else? Otherwise,
No, that's yeah. I like that idea though. That would add a layer of fear, and that's
yeah,
something that is a
interesting.
goal of mine.
Oh,
For like Barrow March specifically, is
okay,
I don't want players to be comfortable.
yeah,
It's funny because I this is a game that I almost feel like I just need to make in total isolation, not associated with any, because no one's gonna want this game. This game is gonna be a miserable experience. That's the way I want it. I want it to make people
oh
feel
man.
like totally destitute and hopeless.
Well, on that excellent pitch, that is all the time we have for this episode. Thanks again for joining us. If you want to keep up to date on what we're doing, go sign up on our website at bigwafflegames.com for our newsletter, which I send out monthly. Also, if you're already listening to this podcast, that's the most current things that we talk about. So keep doing that. Keep listening. We also have social medias and Discord. You can find links on our website as well. And if you got any questions for us or anything you want to talk about, go put it in the Discord, and we'll talk about it on air on the pod. Or if you have any ideas on how you would turn an RTS into a board game or Stray or something else, we'll do other categories in the future too. Let us know. So anyway, that's all the time we have. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. See you, everyone.
Bye.